Hi, I'm Jeff Marushak. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect with AWS on our Department of Defense Air Force team. In this video, I'm going to walk you through installing the AWS IoT TwinMaker Cookie Factory version 2 demo. AWS IoT TwinMaker is an AWS service that allows customers to create operational digital twins of real-world systems. This demo of the Bakersville Cookie Factory will allow you to see for yourself and experiment with a running operational digital twin of a building, assembly line, as well as multiple components, all in near real time. The installation comprises of 3 major steps. First, we'll set up an IDE, and I'll be using AWS Cloud9. 2, we'll actually configure AWS IoT TwinMaker. 3, configuring a custom web application, which will run a development web server from the Cloud9 IDE. Lastly, be aware that building and running the Cookie Factory version 2 demo will incur cost within your AWS account. When you're done with the demo, remember to clean up the environment via the instructions in the README. The instructions to install this demo are included in the AWS TwinMaker samples GitHub repo, specifically the source directory, workspaces, and then Cookie Factory v2. During the installation, I will not be showing these README setup instructions on the screen, but that's what I'll be following, and feel free to do so in another window, in another monitor, or in a way that works best for you. So let's go to the console. The README requests that we use either US to East 1, US to West 2, or EU West 1. I'll be using US to West 2, Oregon, so let's just confirm that. Next, we're going to set up our IDE, so let's find Cloud9 in the console. And when this comes up, we'll hit Create Environment. Enter a name for this environment, description. We are going to want to create a new EC2 instance, so leave this checked. However, we are going to use a T2 large, so click Additional Instance Types and do the pull-down menu and look for T2 large. Let's also check the VPC settings. Make sure you're putting this in a VPC that has an internet gateway so we can allow access to the web server later on. This takes a few minutes to build, but I'll speed through it. And when we get the green banner at the top, we can click Open Cloud9 IDE. Now we're in our IDE. We can go ahead and close the welcome screen and then enlarge the terminal. And first things first, we're going to clone the repo. So we're going to do a git clone and put in the repo address. When this is done pulling down all the files, we'll notice over on the left-hand side that the folder structure is there, and we can see the same structure: source, workspaces, Cookie Factory v2. Next, we need to expand the storage of our Cloud9 environment from 10 gigs to 20 gigs. You can do this manually in the console, but to save time, we have a script. So this command is going to curl this resize.sh script and save it locally. Then we're going to run that script and pass the argument of 20 to change the drive size to 20. When this is done, we can check the results running a df space -h. And that looks good. We can see that one volume has 20 gigs. Cloud9 is already integrated with our AWS account, so if we run this sts command, we just do this to confirm that we have connectivity into our AWS account, and this looks good. Let's clear the screen and let's start checking versions. First thing is the AWS CLI, so we can run an AWS -- version. The README calls for at least version 1.22.94 or 2.55, and this is an older version. So let's go ahead, uninstall this older version of the CLI, and then install CLI version 2. We will do a sudo yum remove AWS CLI. Choose yes. Okay, let's install CLI version 2. Let's move into the temp directory. In the show description, I will put the official directions on installing the AWS CLI, but in this case, we're just going to curl the zip file and save it locally as a zip file. We're next going to unzip that file we just downloaded. When this is done, we can go ahead and install the CLI. And now let's check the version. You know what? Let's go ahead and reset the hash table with a hash space -r. That resets all the directories. And now if we run AWS version, there we go. CLI version 2.13.1, we're good to go. Now we're in the temp directory because we installed CLI. Let's go ahead and move back to the project directory. Again, source workspaces cookie factory v2. And now let's test connectivity to AWS IoT TwinMaker with this command, and make sure you change to the region that you are using, in my case, US West 2. And this is just going to list the workspaces. We're looking for no errors here, and we haven't created a workspace yet, so this is exactly what we're looking for. Now let's go ahead and check some more versions. We're going to look at Node and NPM. For Node, we need version v16x+, and we're good here. And for NPM, we need version 8.10.0+, and we're good there. Next up, let's check the AWS CDK toolkit with the CDK version. This needs to be at least 2.76, and we're good here. Now we can bootstrap our account and get it ready to work with the CDK. With this command, CDK bootstrap, you will need to input your AWS account and your region, and don't forget those two little quotes at the end of the command. This takes a few minutes, so we'll speed through it, but what this is doing is creating a CloudFormation stack. And we can actually go over and check that out really quick. Let's go over to the console and look for CloudFormation. And now we see the CDK toolkit, create in progress. That's the command we just ran. And that other stack is actually our Cloud9 instance. So let's let this finish. I'll speed through it. And we see the account is bootstrapped. If we want, we can go back to CloudFormation, do a refresh, and see that that stack create is complete, so we're good. So next, let's check Docker. We need a version 20+, and we're good there. And with Docker, let's go ahead and authenticate it into ECR. And so this command, what we're going to do is pull the public ECR password and pass it into Docker, just to allow our local version of Docker to authenticate with ECR to pull down container images. Login succeeded, we are good. Now our IDE Cloud9 is ready for the Cookie Factory v2 installation. Let's head over to the console and go and find TwinMaker. So go to the console, search for TwinMaker. When this loads up, we'll go ahead and do create workspace. Enter in a name and a description. For these next two options, for S3 bucket, we want to choose create an S3 bucket. An execution role, we want to open this menu and go to the top and choose auto generate a new role. It's very important you choose create an S3 bucket and auto generate a new role. You can hit skip to review and create, and then create workspace. And this takes a few minutes. We're going to look for some green banners to pop up, but when we're done, we'll see our workspace in the lower left-hand corner. All right, we see our TwinMaker Cookie Jeff workspace. Let's open that up, and we need to get two pieces of information. First, we'll get the cookie Jeff, the name of the workspace, and let's go back to Cloud9, open up a file. We'll just use it as a notepad. So we'll paste cookie Jeff there. That's the name of our workspace. And now we also need the name of the S3 bucket that was created. We'll copy that and also put that in the clipboard. Next, we're going to create some environment variables. So from the repo, we can pull this command in, and we just basically need to fill in the workspace ID, which in this case is Cookie Jeff, and the name of the S3 bucket. Let's copy both of these commands and run those. We're going to need these for some of the commands coming up soon. Okay, this next command is going to change to the CDK directory and prepare the environment with an npm install. This command doesn't take long to run, but when it is done, let's go ahead and clear the screen. We can now run a CDK deploy with this command. And we can see here that it's going to create a stack called Cookie Factory Demo, and here are those environment variables that we created in the last step. This command will take a few minutes, so I'm speeding through the video. One thing to mention is that the default timeout period for AWS Cloud9 environments is 30 minutes. In the show description, I'm going to post a link to show you how to change that to make it longer in case you run into problems around that. When we get to this stage, go ahead and hit yes to actually deploy these changes. And you guessed it, we are deploying another CloudFormation stack. So let's go back while that's running and just see what's being created. Now we can see that stack, Cloud Factory Demo, that create is in progress, so we're good to go. I'm going to speed through this. This does take a few minutes to complete. Okay, we're about done. The thing to look out for when this command completes are these three blue lines: Client ID, Identity Pool ID, and User Pool ID. Let's copy those. We're going to need those to configure the web server later on. And I made a new notepad up top, so we'll just copy those and use them here in a few minutes. We have deployed some assets, and we're going to run a command here against IoT TwinMaker to get some property values. In fact, we're going to pull the last 10 values of a cookie line component plastic liner just to see that there is an entity there with the last 10 values, and we're just looking for good data here, and this is good. Feel free to scroll down to the end or just hit Q to exit. TwinMaker is up and running, and now we're off to step 3, where we're actually going to create the web application to allow us to visualize our digital twin. We're done with the CDK for now, so let's go back to the project directory. And the first step to creating the web application is to set the password of the Amazon Cognito user account that was created for us. So we'll grab this command. And actually, I'm going to post it up in the notepad because we need to grab user pool ID, and that's from the output of the CDK deploy. And then we also need to put in a password for this user. So be sure to make a password that meets the default Cognito password requirements. That is a lowercase letter, uppercase letter, number, symbol, and a length greater than 8. And while we're typing, let's go ahead and get that bracket out of there. Now let's copy this command and run it. Okay, let's navigate to the web application directory. Now we can run an npm install to install the dependencies. And as this command is finishing up, let's look over on the left, and in the Cookie Factory demo directory, source, config, we see 3 TS files: cognito template.ts, sites template, and users template. We're going to need to edit all three of these files and rename them before we can start the server. So let's go ahead and open up the template file. And all we need to add to here is the workspace ID. So we'll go back to our first pad, copy cookie Jeff, the name of our TwinMaker workspace, and place this in the config file. Nothing else to change. Let's go ahead and close this out and save it. And next, let's open up the cognito template.ts file. Here we have to fill in a few things, and we are going to grab client ID, identity pool ID, and user pool ID, and also enter in the region. So let's do these one by one and populate this cognito template file. For region, we can just type in US West 2 or the region that you're using. And finally, the user pool ID. Again, let's close this file, save it, and open up the last. The users template file. This one, the only thing we need to grab from our notepad is that cognito password that we created earlier. So everything else we can just put in whatever you want. This is just visual for when you log into the web application. I'm going to put my name, Jeff Marushak, and make up a title, TwinMaker admin. We'll go back to that cognito command, grab that same password. And finally make up a title. Let's close out this file, save it. And remember, we need to rename these. So for each of these files, we need to remove the word template. So we're going to end up with cognito.ts, sites.ts, and users.ts. Now with these files updated, we can now run the development server. So the next command is an npm run dev, and this is going to go ahead, compile, and start the web server. We can see here that it's running on port 8080, HTTPS, and that 172 address, that's actually the internal VPC private IP addresses, not the public IP addresses. Now, Cloud9 only previews applications running on HTTP. This application, this demonstration, is configured to use self-signed TLS certs over HTTPS, obviously, even though it's running on port 8080. By default, Cloud9 is on an EC2 instance with a security group that is not allowing any inbound rules. So while this web page is compiling, we can go over to the console. So let's go to the console and look for EC2. And we can make that change in that security group really easily. In EC2, we can see the one instance running. This is our Cloud9 environment. Let's click this. And we see a bunch of information. Take notice the public IP address. Let's copy that because we're going to need that to visit this web page as soon as we open up the security group. Let's click on the security tab and we can see that the security group has no existing inbound rules. So let's click on that security group and make a change. Let's go down to inbound rules and edit inbound rules. Let's go to add rule, and we're going to add a simple port 8080, and the source is going to be from my IP. So we're only allowing port 8080 coming from the machine. That's my IP address, but when you do this, that's going to show your IP address. So we are opening up the security group. However, we're only allowing port 8080 from your machine. And we can see here the command is done. The website is created. So let's open up a new tab, go https:// your public IP address, add port 8080. And now, like I said, this demonstration uses self-signed certificates, so we are going to have to accept this warning. Remember, this is a demonstration, this is non-production, so remember you're using self-signed certificates, but congratulations, you have installed the Cookie Factory v2 demo for AWS IoT TwinMaker. Let's go ahead and log in, choose a site, and let's click Scene to look at our 3D model of our Cookie Factory. This takes a few minutes to download the assets, but pretty soon we'll see our cookie factory. So right here is one of the cookie lines. We can see a conveyor right turn, the vertical conveyor, the labeling belt, all of these different things, and they're live data coming in. So I'm going to look around, click on some of these blue dots to look at these components. I urge you to do the same and just look around to see everything that TwinMaker can offer. Oh, my freezer tunnel is having a problem, so I'm going to let you go and look into this right now. The freezer tunnel, we need to check that out. If you'd like to see how an operations manager would use AWS IoT TwinMaker to check into our problematic freezer tunnel, check out the video by my friend Chris Bolin, who does just that. The link will be in the description below. As another reminder, deploying the Cookie Factory version 2 demo will incur costs in your AWS account. Please follow the cleanup instructions when you're done using the demo. I'm Jeff Marushak with AWS, and thanks for watching.